Welcome to the Neighborhood Law Center. I'm your host, Melvin Burruss, and our guest today is Frank Squillace, Director of the Network2Work at PVCC. Welcome, Frank.
Thanks, Mel. Appreciate you having me.
Glad to have you doing some exciting things here in the community. You're helping folks, the economy, getting folks to get a second start in life, starting a new season, which is great in their lives, helping them be self-sufficient. And what that means is they're contributing to the community as well as the economy.
Yes, sir.
But before we go into it, why don't you give us a little background, one of yourself and then of the program itself.
Sure, sounds good. So I've been a resident of Charlottesville, Albemarle for 32 years, moved here in 1988, had a nice career in administration at Martha Jefferson Hospital, working primarily in the community with a lot of volunteers and healthcare providers outside of the hospital as well. Moved from there into church management at the Church of the Incarnation, big church behind Toys R Us there. Again, a lot of helping opportunities there, assisting with social programs and volunteers. Moved from there to, as you know, and when I met you at the Chamber of Commerce, enjoyed my almost 7 years there, and got to know several, if not most, of the businesses in the area over my 7 years, which I think all three of those jobs led me to 2 years ago next week, starting with the Network2Work PVCC program, and have really enjoyed it. I've been very blessed in my life to make a lot of connections, and I think part of what we do is connecting people.
Good. Well, what it sounds like, you got a great background for being an advocate for others in the community,
Yes.
which is a good thing, because tell me about how Network2Work got started and what's the problem that you saw and that you're trying to solve.
Thank you. So when I was at the chamber board decided to conduct a study, and we hired Ridge Schuyler to conduct a study, which basically was focused on what does Central Virginia look like in terms of those who can earn a living and those who can't, primarily looking at the idea of self-sufficiency. And long story short, Ridge's study showed that 1 out of every 5 families in Central Virginia just don't make enough to make ends meet, to get by day to day. We all thought that was great, but then we turned to Ridge and said, okay, now what are you going to do about it? And at that point, Ridge said, well, I'm going to put together what I think is the best way to get people to become self-sufficient. And you and I have talked about this quite a bit, and that is through a steady job. A job that actually pays a halfway decent wage as well. Not just one, you're coming out of high school, you're in high school and you make $7.25 an hour, but one that can sustain your family and you have the opportunity to move up. So he put that together basically 4 years ago, and we've exploded ever since. What we're trying to solve is the issue of 12,000 plus families in Central Virginia not being able to be self-sufficient. We're trying to bring to them the support services as well as eventually that job at the end, with hundreds of employers in Central Virginia that have jobs that pay a decent wage, and get people to then become self-sufficient.
What I like about your program is you take them through a training, but at the end of that training, you make sure that or try to make sure that they get a job, which is very important when you go through several months of training and studying, that you, at the end of it, you want to have something at the end.
Exactly.
The pot at the goal of the rainbow.
Exactly.
So what is the process for someone seeking employment or a better wage for self-sufficiency?
Sure. So we use it. Another unique aspect of the program is we use what we call connectors in Central Virginia. We've trained over 300 people, and I'm training more every month. Churches, individuals, social service agencies, people who know people looking for jobs. When an employer uses us free of charge to advertise their job that pays at least $12.50 an hour or more, I send it out via a local app, if you will, developed by a local company, Tech Dynamism, that works with us. And I send it out to these connectors, and it says, there's a new job at Melvin Burruss Incorporated, paying $15 an hour as a carpenter. And that connector says, oh, I know somebody that would love to work for Mel Burruss. He's a great guy. Or he loves working with his hands, but he was formerly incarcerated and he's down on his luck. He's underemployed now, making $8 an hour doing something else. He's just needing something new. Let me get him and send him to Frank and his team at Network2Work at PVCC. Our office is located on South Street, actually, and get him enrolled. And that connector sends that person, and the person says, great, I've heard about this job. I would love that $15 an hour job with Mel Burruss. What do I need to do? We set a pathway for that person. If it's Mr. Smith, we say, Mr. Smith, tell us about your life. Why were you incarcerated? Do you have a car to get to Mr. Burruss's operation? Are you a single dad? Do you need child care? We currently partner with 45 local Health and Human Service agencies in Central Virginia whose role is to take care of those particular aspects of people's lives. We set the person on a pathway, including training. So if he needed to be an HVAC, engineer, whatever, an engineer, HVAC, learning a certification, or you want to learn to be a truck driver or a certified nurse assistant, we'd send him to our sister division, the Workforce Services, train, help pay for all of that, and then at the end, the person is ready and they're a better potential applicant than anything most employers can pull off of Indeed or Snag a Job or Craigslist, because we've vetted them. We then let the person apply to that job through the normal employer's channels, and then I contact every one of those employers and say, hey, Mel, Mr. Smith is a Network2Work graduate. He's coming your way for that job. All of our employers move our applicants to the top. They all give them the opportunity. They're not required to hire them or interview them, but they all at least interview them because they know we've done a lot of work that their HR departments can't do, and they trust that Network2Work, with our success, has done what they're looking for.
Well, let's talk about the 3 networks that you have set up.
Correct. Yep.
That you referred to. What are those all about?
So the employer, it starts with the job. As we said, we believe to get people to become self-sufficient, you can go to any human service agency and you can get food and you can get your license. And we need all of those. But eventually, to get out of poverty and to become self-sufficient, you need steady income. And there are only one group of people, if you will, that can provide that, employers, on a regular, every 2-week or monthly basis. So we start with jobs. The employer network is currently made up of 90 local employers. I think we started with 2 a couple of years ago, from UVA on down, that offer jobs that don't require college degrees that pay at least $25,000 a year or more. There are hundreds of jobs out there. So if you're an employer and you have openings, give us a call. It's free of charge for employers. There's no cost. It takes you 5 minutes to create what we call a job ticket. What is the information about the job? Is it on a bus line? Does it have benefits? What training is required? From there, the employer network, we then send that job ticket, if you will, as I mentioned earlier, via the app, all electronically, out to the job seeker network. And that consists of the connectors, the people in the communities that know people. And again, if you're willing to be trained, you want to be trained, it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, pretty easy. We've got more churches calling us. We've got local groups saying, we're in touch with people looking for jobs. We would love to have that opportunity to see real live jobs at our fingertips. Train us, train us. So that job seeker network consists of those connectors. And then, of course, the third network is the providers, the 45 plus agencies I talked about earlier that partner with us, that meet a specific need of a person in their life. United Way is a great example. Vouchers for childcare. If you are a single mom or a single dad trying to keep a job and you don't have adequate childcare, it's almost impossible to keep that job, as great as your skills may be. Because if you don't know that your children are taken care of on a regular day-to-day basis, it's tough to concentrate. Cars are another one. We get cars donated to us by people in the community. If you have a car and you'd like to donate it to us, we'll turn right around and we loan them to our job seekers. They get up to 6 months, so they can get to training, they can get to a job. So that's the provider network. So those three networks, the employer network, the job seeker network, and the provider network, make up our, if you will, network to work at PVCC.
As we were talking before, you were saying transportation is a big part of this.
Huge.
And now you're going to establish the ability or the capability of having people donate cars.
Correct.
And get a tax write-off.
Correct.
Can you tell them a little bit more, or tell us as much as you know about it right now?
Sure. As much as I know, we are in that process of developing either a separate entity or within the college itself. They're still trying to work it out, and I leave that up to Ridge and Dr. Friedman and our fabulous team up on campus, if you will. The bottom line is the city and county have yet to develop a regional transit system. So if somebody wants a job outside the city limits where CAT goes and they don't have a transportation, it's impossible to take a job north of 29, over in Fluvanna or Louisa or wherever, if you're living in Charlottesville. It just doesn't happen. You need a car. You need some method of transportation. So we have currently, I believe, 15 cars that are part of our Network to Work program. If you come in, you could be put on the waiting list for a car. We loan that up to you for 6 months until we feel you then have a paycheck enough to either buy a car or rent in some way that gets you transportation to where you go.
President Obama started the workforce initiative Viva Joe Biden many years ago.
Yes.
How does that workforce that they started on a national basis relate to, in regards to your workforce?
Right. So workforce is a big name for, in my mind, anything in any program out there that is willing to train people to better themselves. So there are multiple programs across the country and even across the state, and they're if you will, supported by various organizations. Our actual PVCC Division of Workforce Services provides a lot of training for local companies as well as open enrollment training. Example, if you want to become a certified nurse assistant, we have continuous classes. All of the truck driving training is done over there at the bottom of the hill, if you will, for people wanting their commercial driver's licenses. Those two in particular I'll use are jobs that are available now. Every healthcare provider in this town is looking for more CNAs. And there are, from what we understand, literally thousands of truck driving jobs, both locally and nationally for people. So many of our job seekers want those. We partner with our sister division in workforce services to provide training for our job seekers. We couldn't expect somebody to come and say, oh, I want that job over at Pepsi, Foster Fuels, SL Williamson, all great truck driving jobs, without having their CDL training and certification. So we use that division of workforce as an example to help train them.
Welcome to the Neighborhood Law Center. This is Melvin Burruss, your host, and our guest today is Director Frank Squillace. And we're talking today about Network to Work at PVCC. Now, we left off at certification. That's a great aspect of this whole program, that someone can come in and get certified with a certificate to work in a particular area.
Correct.
They make them more valuable for the employer, that's for sure, but also they learn a lot of skills that they normally would not get.
Absolutely.
So can you talk about that, the certification program?
Sure. So if you, again, are searching to become a truck driver, a CNA, a welder, workforce services, and other areas around Central Virginia, but obviously we're tied to PVCC, and when those classes are offered, we shoot them right towards that sister division, if you will. And a person goes through the training. The state, primarily for the group of job seekers that we have, will pay for the majority of the class. Our Network to Work program assists with the other portions of the classes they might not be able to pay for. So for the most part, the classes are free, if you will, if they get through and they get their certification. Most employers in those particular jobs require that. Obviously, you can't just say, I want to be a healthcare worker and go in and work. You need a certification. At minimum, that nurse certification is part of the CNA requirement. There are jobs, however, Mel, that don't fall under a certification, and we have developed our own little training in-house that we quote-unquote certify. As we were talking earlier, it's great if you're, again, CDL, CNA, welder, carpenter, HVAC, you get state certification, and that looks good not only on your record, but helps you with the employer. But many employers today don't even care about that. I want to be, the employer wants a front desk hotel clerk or a maintenance person, or what. There are no certifications in that. But because we didn't feel like we could vouch for those job seekers without putting our eyes on them, we put them through 2 days of mandatory training with what we believe are all the aspects that you would receive in a certification class. How to look somebody in the eye, how to respond to your supervisor, how to dress, how to prepare a resume, how to interview, all of those aspects. So nobody comes through our program without at least certification training through the state and workforce services and all that they offer, or certification training in smaller in parens, if you will, through Network2Work.
Now, I know you talked about a lot of different disciplines, but could you give our audience kind of a laundry list of what's available?
Absolutely. So we primarily play in the area of 4 fields, and this is how actually, if you're a connector, you'll see the fields broken up in these jobs. First one is healthcare. It's huge. Between UVA, Centera Martha Jeff, and all of the other healthcare providers, there are literally hundreds of jobs. CNAs aren't the only ones. There's greeters at the front door. There's food service workers, environmental service, housekeeping workers, central sterile supply. You name it. There are a lot of jobs out there that pay $25,000 or more that are unfilled right now. Healthcare is one of our big ones. The next one is construction and trades, another gigantic area. Carpenters, general laborers, electricians, plumbers. Most, if not all, of the local contractors are hurting for people. They need those type of people, and we've got a lot of people searching for those jobs. The next one is transportation and logistics. As I mentioned earlier, transportation is huge, both locally and nationally. The logistics side are things like manufacturing jobs, custom ink, making T-shirts. I've got a buddy who's got an operation north of town making cables for the U.S. government, logistical jobs. And then the final one is our catch-all called hospitality and services. And that includes everything from local banks, hotels, restaurants, small nonprofits, looking for good quality workers, paying a decent wage, but essentially not needing a certification.
Okay. One thing we talked about, this costs money.
It does.
And I was just wondering, how is your program funded? Is it funded through PVCC, or is it a standalone program?
Okay, so it's a combination. So PVCC supplies us with the support services that we need. We have a beautiful house on South Street where our office is located. We utilize many of our departments, our grant writing department, our IT department, our facilities department to support us. But the money actually comes through the PVCC Foundation, which is our donations from local philanthropists and local companies and grants. So those are our 3 primary sources. We've been very blessed and honored that so many people in the community continue to donate to PVCC Foundation and earmark it towards Network2Work because of the work we're doing. And then we've got many local companies that say, wow, you guys you're doing the right thing here. We want to support you. And then, of course, we do apply for grants to help us with the job seekers.
Okay. The other thing is, what's interesting about this, you almost take the place of a human resource
Yes, sir. Yes,
department, because you do the vetting,
Correct.
You do the training. How is your relationship with the human resources people, and give us a little more insight to some of these things.
Sure. So many times when I meet with local employers who've heard about us, or maybe after today's show call us and say, hey, I need workers, Frank, would love to work with you guys. I don't tell them up front that it's free. Great, you want to work with us, super. And at the end they say, so how much does this cost us? And I say, nothing. Just be a good employer and pay a decent wage. And their jaws drop. They literally say, you find us and vet people for us for free? Like, yes. The whole point is you put in your skin by paying a wage that can sustain a person or a family, and you be a good employer. We don't have any criteria for that, but and we'll send you people. So I think for the most part, most if not all of the employers, human resources managers that I work with, or in smaller companies, it's the owners, are thrilled that we're willing to do all of the vetting, including background checks and again training and offering the support services, and it doesn't cost them a dime. And we keep saying it'd be crazy for any organization not to use this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest part of some folks cannot get jobs or cannot work is because they have a child at home, so they need babysitting.
Right.
As you said before, the transportation problem that we have. Okay, finally, tell us what a viewer or listener who's interested in volunteering with the program can do and how they can reach you.
Sure. So we have several volunteer opportunities. One is this connector. If you know people looking for jobs and you just want a ding on your phone once a week from me that says there's a new employer with a new job, let us know. We can always add more connectors, and you as a connector would then say, I know somebody that is looking for that job and I'm going to send them to Network2Work. Second is, you mentioned cars. We're always willing to take more cars. We are delighted that we can give those to our job seekers and keep them employed or get them to training, so you can volunteer that way. You can volunteer your car. The next thing that we'll be starting fairly soon is recruiting volunteer navigators. What we have found is once somebody gets into our program, but before we get them to the job, they just need a gentle guide along the way, somebody to check in with them once a week. We're calling those people navigators, and we're going to really launch in the next couple months our recruitment of volunteer navigators. And finally, if you wish to volunteer in our office, we've got everything from helping to assist people with resumes to providing mock interviews, you name it. We have our own volunteer network within our office.
Okay, so how do they reach you? And I guess we'll see it on the screen, but why don't you tell them where they can reach you? And
Sure. Network2Work at pvcc.edu is our email. Network2Work at pvcc. Under the, I believe it's the community tab on the far right of the pvcc.edu website. They can call our office or stop by at South Street, 222 South Street. Our office is 434-961, I'll give you mine, 434-961-5470. You can call
so now
me.
you can see you from New York.
Exactly, you're selling something.
434-961-5470. Right.
If you're interested in any aspect of our program, if you're an employer or you want to be a volunteer, or just stop by again. Like I said, we love people coming by.
Okay. We always relied on the old workforce that you talked about program. And this seemed to be a kind of the traditional one, but this seems to be a new type of program. Why should we change what we've been doing?
Because we believe it hasn't worked.
That's a start.
Every employer I've met with said, Frank, we still go online, we get 1,000 applications and 10 maybe look good, and we don't see the person, we don't see, we invite them in for an interview, 3 say they're going to come and interview, 2 of them don't show and don't let us know, and 1 does, and they maybe or maybe not fit our model. What we're saying is that model is old. It doesn't necessarily work anymore. And if you want to do away with thousands of applications of faceless and nameless people, so to speak, Network2Work, we believe, is the way to go. We'll send you quality people. You're, again, not required to hire them or even interview them, but we're not going to send somebody to you that we don't think wants that job, has identified they want the job, and has the supportive services to find and keep that job.
Well, that's huge. And the best part of it, they're being referred by someone who has credibility.
Correct.
That's the most important thing.
Correct.
So anything else that you want to leave with our audience?
Oh, I want to first thank you, Mel. We've been honored again, especially the past 6 months. We've received a lot of press and TV and radio coverage, and it's people like you in the community that allow us to get the word out about good programs like Network2Work at PVCC. So thank you. Otherwise, we look forward to continuing to grow. We're honored that we're moving quickly across the state possibly, and we'll see where we go.
Well, I want to congratulate you for being selected as a distinguished dozen with the Daily Progress.
Thank you, Mel.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's well deserved.
Thank you.
Coming to the end of the program, the Neighborhood Law Center. I'm your host, Melvin Burruss, and I guess it's been Frank Squillace, and Director of Network2Work PVCC. You can see us on the website, or you can see us as you're doing now on cable television. We're on Mondays at 10, Wednesdays at 9 p.m., and Fridays at 8 p.m. So if you miss us on TV, cable TV, Channel 13, please go to the website and you'll see the program, or YouTube, and you'll see us there, okay? Until next time, Mel Burruss, peace and God bless.